The iron door groaned as Emma pushed it open with both hands, the sound echoing like a warning down the forgotten stairwell. The hinges, stiff with rust, resisted until they finally gave way, revealing a yawning darkness beyond. A faint draft slipped out, carrying with it the thick smell of oil, dust, and something older, like time itself had been locked away in this place. She hesitated at the threshold. Her phone's flashlight flickered on, its narrow beam cutting through the stale air. The beam struck the floor first, a cracked sheet of concrete littered with fragments of brick and curled scraps of paper. Each cautious step she took echoed back at her, louder than it should have been, as if the cavernous room resented the intrusion. When her eyes adjusted, she realized the shadows weren't empty. Shapes loomed on either side of the path, massive, silent forms draped in heavy brown tarps. Dust clung to the fabric like frost, softening the outlines but failing to hide the elegance beneath. She stopped in her tracks, her chest tightening. Cars. Rows of them. Emma slowly walked forward, her gaze darting from one covered silhouette to the next. The outlines were unmistakable. Rounded hoods, sweeping fenders, proud grills frozen in slumber. Some tarps sagged from years of weight, while others had slipped just enough to reveal glints of metal, the dull reflection of headlights peeking out like half-closed eyes. Above her, a network of thick pipes crisscrossed the low ceiling, their metallic surfaces dulled with grime. From somewhere deep in the garage, a droplet of water fell with a sharp clink, the sound impossibly loud in the silence. She caught herself holding her breath, as though afraid the sound of her lungs might disturb whatever secrets slept here. At the far end of the aisle, a single light bulb flickered, its weak glow spilling across more car shapes shrouded in dust. Emma's pulse quickened. It wasn't just a garage. It was a tomb, a hidden sanctuary where history had been left to decay. And she was the first to disturb it in decades. Emma's hand trembled as she reached for one of the dust-laden tarps. The fabric was coarse beneath her fingers, stiff from years of neglect, and it released a faint puff of dust as she pinched it between her thumb and forefinger. She hesitated. Pulling it back felt like disturbing a grave. But curiosity, sharp and insistent, overpowered her caution. With one swift motion, she tugged the cover away. The tarp slid down the side of the car with a heavy sigh, sending dust swirling into the stagnant air. Emma coughed lightly, waving her hand in front of her face, then froze as her eyes fell upon the machine beneath. It was beautiful, even beneath the grime of decades. The curves of a vintage Porsche gleamed faintly in the dim light, its once vibrant paint dulled but still elegant. The chrome bumper caught the beam of her flashlight and threw it back in a muted glow, like a forgotten star remembering how to shine. She stepped closer, her boots crunching on the grit scattered across the floor. Her hand brushed along the hood, leaving a streak through the dust, exposing smooth metal beneath. The coldness of the steel sent a shiver through her, though not from the chill. It was awe. The car seemed alive, slumbering, perhaps, but alive. Emma leaned closer, peering into the windshield. The glass was clouded, fogged with years of neglect, but inside she could just make out the faded leather seats, cracked from time, and a steering wheel that seemed to whisper of journeys long past. For a moment she imagined the sound of the engine roaring to life, the car surging down a winding road, the world rushing by in a blur of freedom. Her voice slipped out in a whisper, barely audible. "How long have you been sleeping here?" The silence answered her, deep and unbroken. Dust still hung in the air like ghosts, circling in the faint glow of her flashlight. Emma placed her palm flat on the hood, almost as though greeting an old soul. And in that instant, she knew, this was no ordinary discovery. Emma tore her gaze away from the car and noticed the far corner of the garage. It wasn't just filled with covered vehicles. Shadows gathered more thickly there, concealing something different: boxes, crates, and piles of forgotten objects. Her flashlight beam wavered as she stepped toward it, her pulse still racing from the discovery. The first thing she saw was a stack of wooden crates, their surfaces cracked and splintered with age. Some bore faded shipping labels, the ink too blurred to read. Others had stenciled numbers in blocky black paint, the kind used by military or smugglers. She crouched low and brushed her hand over one, wiping away a layer of dust thick enough to coat her skin. Next to the crates were coils of rope, tangled and yellowed with time. Metal hooks glinted faintly in the dim light, suggesting they hadn't been used for anything ordinary. Her mind conjured possibilities. Cargo tied down, shipments hidden, or worse, evidence of something far less innocent. On a rusted shelf nearby, drawers gaped open, their contents spilling onto the floor. Old documents, maps, and scraps of paper lay scattered, their corners curled with moisture and decay. Emma bent down, picking one up carefully. The paper was brittle, ready to crumble at her touch. At the bottom of a pile, a leather-bound ledger caught her attention. Its cover was worn and cracked, but the brass clasp still held firm. She fumbled with it until it snapped open. Inside, the pages were filled with neat handwriting, column after column of names, dates, and numbers. Each line was meticulous, organized, almost businesslike. But the entries didn't look like ordinary records. Some names were crossed out, others underlined, and the numbers beside them were staggeringly large, too large to be anything simple. Emma's breath quickened. She flipped through the pages, her flashlight shaking slightly. The further she looked, the darker the implications became. These weren't storage records. They were transactions, deals. Something vast had taken place here, hidden beneath layers of dust and silence. And now, she was holding the evidence in her hands. Emma closed the ledger slowly, her fingers lingering on the cracked leather cover. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out the silence of the garage. She set the book gently on top of the crate, as though it were something fragile, something dangerous. Her eyes drifted back to the cars, their shrouded forms standing in still rows. For the first time, she didn't see them as relics of history or machines waiting to be restored. She saw them as evidence. Hidden fortunes. Perhaps even crimes. She walked slowly between the vehicles, her flashlight sliding across dusty curves of steel and chrome. Each shape told a story. A gleaming hood that once raced across highways, headlights that had once cut through the night. But now they were silent prisoners, kept here in this underground tomb. The thought struck her like a jolt. These cars weren't abandoned. No one leaves treasures like this to rot unless they're hiding them. And if they were hidden, then someone had hidden them for a reason. Emma swallowed hard, her throat dry. What had she stumbled into? Smuggling, theft, a collector's secret stash. The ledger's meticulous records made it clear, this was business, not nostalgia. She pictured men in suits shaking hands in smoky rooms, deals whispered in the shadows, fortunes exchanged for silence. Her flashlight beam caught on a patch of chrome that wasn't dulled by dust. It reflected her face back at her, ghostly and pale in the dim light. For a moment, she hardly recognized herself. She wasn't just a curious explorer anymore. She was a trespasser in someone else's world, a world carefully hidden and fiercely guarded. The air seemed heavier now, pressing down on her shoulders. Every creak of the pipes above, every drip of water in the distance, felt like a warning. She had uncovered something she wasn't supposed to find. And somewhere deep inside, a chilling certainty settled in her chest. Whoever hid these cars might still be watching. Emma stood frozen in the middle of the garage, her flashlight beam trembling across the hood of the Porsche. The ledger still lay open on the crate behind her, its pages whispering secrets she was never meant to read. Her pulse pounded in her ears, and for the first time since stepping through the steel door, she felt truly afraid. She turned in a slow circle, letting the light skim over the shrouded cars. Each one was a fortune, millions of dollars hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone bold enough to claim them. The temptation hit her like a wave. She could take the ledger, call the authorities, and make headlines as the woman who uncovered a criminal empire. Justice would be served, and her name would be remembered. But another voice crept in, softer and more dangerous. What if she didn't tell anyone? What if she kept this secret for herself? No one else knew about this place. No one else had seen these cars. She could take one, just one, and vanish. With the right buyer, she could buy freedom, escape the dull routine of her life, and finally live the adventure she always dreamed of. Her reflection glimmered again in a chrome bumper, fractured and ghostlike. The image unsettled her. Was this who she really was? A thief, a savior, or just a woman in over her head? Emma tightened her grip on the flashlight, her knuckles white. She had to choose. Report what she found and risk the wrath of whoever owned this secret, or keep it buried and carry the weight of silence. Her chest rose and fell sharply as she took a step toward the ledger. The choice hung over her like a guillotine blade. And in that heavy, suffocating stillness, she realized something chilling. Whatever decision she made, there would be no turning back. Emma froze. The sound was faint, almost swallowed by the heavy silence of the garage, but it was their footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and unmistakably human. They echoed from the far end of the chamber, beyond the flickering light bulb that buzzed weakly overhead. Her breath caught in her throat. She flicked off the flashlight instinctively, plunging herself into near darkness. Dust still swirled in the air from her movements, catching the dim light like drifting ghosts. Her heart hammered so loudly she feared whoever was there could hear it. The steps grew clearer, tapping softly against the cracked concrete floor. Not hurried, not uncertain. Confident. Whoever it was, they belonged here. Emma crouched low behind the Porsche, pressing her back against the cool metal. The car's body smelled of old leather and rust, a sharp reminder of where she was, and how trapped she might be. She strained her ears, trying to track the sound. Then it stopped. Silence thickened, so absolute it made her skin prickle. She dared not move, her body locked in tension. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her eyes above the hood. The dim light revealed nothing but endless shrouded shapes. But she knew, someone was there, watching. A faint scrape of metal on stone broke the silence. It wasn't footsteps this time, but the sound of something being dragged. A chain, a tool. Emma's stomach tightened. Her flashlight felt heavy in her hand, a pitiful defense. She wanted to run, to bolt for the door, but the thought of breaking the silence felt like suicide. Whoever had stepped into the garage already knew she was there. She pressed her lips together, fighting the panic rising in her chest. The cars stood around her like silent witnesses, their polished chrome catching fragments of trembling light. For the first time, they didn't seem like treasures. They seemed like coffins. And then, from the darkness, a voice, low, steady, and close enough to make her blood run cold. "You shouldn't be here."